Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where the orchard of wisdom shows are at your fingertips. It ignites your soul, your heart, your spirit, your mind, and your body with illumination from people who have made the journey before you. They're here now to help you on your journey, on your path of self-discovery. We are funded by you, the audience, and the people we interview. If you wish to support us, please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com and press on our Fund Action button. Anything is appreciated. We'd like you to sit back and enjoy the shows. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to another edition of Building Your Business right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My wonderful guest today is Rich Owen. My goodness, has he got a huge, long lineage of cybersecurity. He's going to help us today in small businesses if we're looking into start our business, even if just kind of protecting ourselves online, all the things that we need to know. He's been in the business for over 50 years. He's had some great opportunities and received some great recognition. He created many a computer security program, including one of them for the mission operations at Johnson Space Center, where the astronauts awarded him the Silver Snoopy. I got to know about that, for protecting their lives. He's a member of the Information Security Hall of Fame, and last year he was awarded the industry's Lifetime Achievement Award. Now that he is retired, does he ever retire? He's sharing his knowledge with individuals and small business. He is the author of Cyber Security Sam, a series of books which were about high school students who help an FBI solve cybercrime. He is the principal contributor to Johnny Security Seed LLC. He began his cybersecurity adventure in the Army Security, and primary customer of the ASA was the National Security Agency, and he performed his duties in electronic warfare, electronic countermeasures, and systems and repair supervisor. We're going to be talking all about that, also the books, Rosie I'm Home, the Time Out, as well as the cyber books. And he's literally got all the information that we need to have to protect ourselves if we're starting or running a business, but even just kind of being online, because as much as technology is absolutely wonderful and how it's liberated businesses around the world, connected people around the world, broadened all those spectrums, it still has this huge, big red flag of beware. And that's beware we really do have to beware of, don't we, Rich? Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Yes, this is a super opportunity for me because your audience is exactly the people I want to talk to from my business aspect, because my mission is to help people avoid the evils of the internet.
Yes. I mean, it is a wonderful tool, but you've got the deep dark web. You've always got people that will look at it as a way of exploiting. Those people will look to exploit in any which way they can, but the internet makes it even easier for them, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's so funny you say that about people exploiting. You start with the fact that we're all humans, and
Yes.
humans make mistakes, and then these same humans create machines and the internet, which we all think are perfect. But the internet was never designed with any security in it to start with.
Right.
It's always been patched on, and the same with the computer systems that we connect. And what are we doing? We're protecting ourselves? No, we're flooding more and more of our personal information out there to make us even more at risk.
Yes, I know. But what I am finding now, more and more industries are making it that's the only way you can do business with them. Yeah, even we've got Tim Hortons here in Canada. They used to have a rewards card. You can't retrieve any of the rewards unless you go online. And most of their clientele is 70 plus. Some of them do not own a computer, certainly not iPhones or Androids or anything like that. And they're literally cutting out that market who do not feel secure going online.
Well, the data collection is a double-edged sword. I'm very pro collecting the data because if a company knows more about me, they can better serve me as a customer.
Right.
But at the same time, how are they protecting the data that they have on me? Are they
Yes.
selling it to anybody down the road, or is their security so weak that they might as well be giving it away?
We see movies all the time about, the top security and somebody's built a back door, or, a hacker comes along and, oh, that's easy for me to break. How real is that?
So glad you asked that. You mentioned my first three books in the Cybersecurity SAM series. All my books are based on real cyber crimes and cyber events. My fourth book, when it comes out, is called I'm Back. Not a quote from Arnold, but I'm back.
I'm back.
But the basic foundation for that, excuse me, it was about a year ago. There was a vulnerability in the Exchange servers used for that's transported Microsoft email. They found it. They put a patch in to fix this hole, but they discovered even after they patched it, a back door had been created in systems that had already been infected. So the people, the bad guys were still able to get back in. So it is very real. It happens all the time.
You know, we talk about viruses, and of course the pandemic, the big C virus, has been on everyone's mind, and it's pushed people even more to go online. And you know, in a lot of ways been a godsend, because it's been the connection between people that otherwise would have been isolated. But it's more and more people are going to online business than they did before. But you know, we talk about viruses, you know, in the computer, and people don't quite really understand what those are. But I think in a way you've just explained it. You kind of patch one thing, but there's already a number of other holes that have multiplied down the way that you haven't yet noticed.
Absolutely. In fact, software developers, here again, they're humans. They're trying to build good products, but oftentimes they're on a schedule.
Yeah.
And time to market is the number one evil to a software developer, because he's on a budget, on a schedule to get his product out. And they need, well, for example, if you're writing a program to do tax preparation, having that program available to the public April 16th does you no good, because everybody's already done all their taxes. So you need to have it out months beforehand so it will make a return on investment. But that time to market causes them to push things and not thoroughly check and evaluate the code that they're creating. The best example I have for the time to market issue is the Challenger incident. With Challenger, they were on a schedule. They hadn't fully vetted the issue with the O-rings at sub-zero, sub-freezing temperatures, and they made a decision based on time to market, keeping with the schedule.
Right. And there's always a price to pay when that happens. Right. Yeah. And, you know, kind of the word that, or two words that come to mind there is time management. You know, if you know that you have a deadline, then you need to start 2 years beforehand. You need to allow the cushions, right? You can have various goals. Okay, if we went to market at this date, are we ready? Look at it as if it was going to market and then test it out. No, it isn't. So then if we went to market on that date, but again, I don't see time management in a lot of these developments.
Well, it's there, but here again, it's people trying to write code and trying to develop a program to solve a problem. Let's take a look at a software guy who's trying to write a program to open, to let you come into your home. Well, that's his mission. Well, he says, well, I don't know how big you are, so I'm going to make it a garage door. And you know, so right now, when you open a garage door, it's letting a lot of heating in or air conditioning, depending on where you are in the country, in or out. So that's one issue. But the programmer really wants to look good for the customer, so he makes it so this garage door automatically opens when you drive up.
Yes.
Maybe without fully verifying that it's you who's driving up. So now your house totally open to anybody who drives up.
Right, exactly. No, but there was also something we had last year where if people put their keys just inside their door, right, that it wasn't removed far enough away from their car, they could access being able to open up the car with no key drive it away. Yes,
that's very true. Also, if you leave your car unlocked and you have a garage door opener in it,
yes,
somebody breaks it or gets into your car, opens your garage door, and comes right into your house.
We know we've also seen those shows or movies where the AI takes over the house.
I love it.
And it's, you know, it's becomes the horror movie where the house has got them interrupted, and then they all seem to be psychopathic AIs, you know. But I mean, how real could that be?
That's Rosie, I'm Home. That's
Ah,
the book Rosie, I'm Home. It's a story of Sam's buddy Cole, who has a smart car, and his parents are fairly well off, and they have a smart house.
mm.
And some of the issues that are involved with that are in that Rosie, I'm Home book.
And they are real issues that you've put
Yes,
in a
absolutely.
fictitious
Like I
book,
said,
but are real issues.
oh, yes, they are very real issues. It's referred to as IoT, Internet of Things. Uh, I have about 50 devices in my home that are connected to my internet.
Mm,
That's because I took the time to count them. Most people have many issues, many more. So as you add a new refrigerator,
right.
everything's internet connected these days.
This also goes in. There was a lovely Twilight. I don't know if it was Outer Limits or Twilight Zone, but they were, you know, much the same. And it was about everybody literally had a chip in their head, you know, and the computer, you know, computer this, computer that, and they didn't have to think because the computer did it all for them. And there was one guy that couldn't, the chip didn't work, so he was considered the moron. But nobody was looking after the computer, which is now 200 years old. It broke down, and the moron became the teacher. Right. And the
Yes,
moral of the story is
yes.
although all of these internet things are wonderful assets and can really increase our productivity and everything else in life, do not forget all the other basic things that we need to have, because we see Walking Dead, Armageddon, everything else, internet gone, somehow all electricity is gone and they don't know how to regenerate that, which I never get that. But anyway, and we're going back to Neanderthal times, right? So it is we get lazy with all of these devices, don't we? And then we kind of literally forget how to even talk because we talk cryptic like text talk.
I totally agree. That's so much the case. I remember I was actually in England when they brought in computers to some of the news agencies, and the people in the union for typewriters went on strike.
Mm-hmm.
So, but typewriters were important. In fact, every business needs to know how are they going to stay in business if their internet's down, or if their computer
Yes.
crashes, or if they lose their data. That's a key component of what's the issue of ransomware.
Mm.
Ransomware is what took out the Colonial Pipeline on the East Coast. One person clicked a link in an email, and the Colonial Pipeline came to a standstill because of the computers were all hosed up. $5 million in ransom paid later, and they finally got it back. But this is very real.
Yes, it is. Um, you know, we were talking about before the show about, you know, how much spam or um, you know, cyber stuff happens. I get on a weekly basis a minimum of 20. You know, you've paid for your Norton, thank you. Any what's the name, you know, call the number. And I remember the first time it happened, I called my bank and I said, I don't have Norton, you know, and they said, no payment's gone through. And then they said, don't use the phone number, don't use the phone number, or don't respond back, because now they can kind of get into your computer and everything. So now it's just report phishing, report phishing, report phishing. And it's gone beyond Norton now, it's gone to so many other things. And it doesn't matter how many times you block them, they just come up from another server. So it is just one of the things I noticed was as human beings, we've stopped the ability to actually read information.
Right.
We scan, we look at a couple of pretty words, and then afterwards panic. Well, if you read the information, you would have known what
Right.
to do to protect yourselves. But we've got so lazy with that, haven't we?
Oh, what a good softball you just gave me there. Because when I started my business, I started, as I'm organizing myself, I started getting these phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started getting emails. Well, I mean, I'd been getting them all along, but I started paying attention to these phone calls and these emails and the messages. And then I started looking more at the social media. So I started collecting all these scams that I was receiving, and I put them into a book. And I put in there, here's how to recognize these scams, and here's what you should do about them. And that book is the first book I created. It's titled "Your Personal Information is at Risk." Subtitle: A Guide for Protecting Yourself. And it's nothing but a collection of real scams that are out there, just as examples. Uh,
Yes.
the bottom line is people say don't believe what you read, especially on the internet.
Yeah.
That's very true. And what you said is we don't read it. We
No.
just scan over it and do a reaction.
Yes.
You're not going to get. I was at Dell when the I Love You virus came
Yes.
out.
Right.
I'm sorry. People that know me don't love me. Some people that know me don't love me. So deal with it. So you have to look at this stuff and go, what is it really? Who is it from? Was it to me? These are the questions that I put forward in the book of how to recognize these things. And there's actually a reporting agency, ic3.gov, for reporting this stuff.
That actually, I think, is a huge problem because, I've turned to the banks or I've turned this, and it's like, well, where does it go? And I remember talking to a police person once, and they say we get so much of it. Basically, it just goes into kind of a file, and that's it. We don't do anything about it because there's too much. And like how many billions a year the banks pay out on fraud. Right. And I've been caught a couple of times because I literally thought it was my bank site that was asking me these questions, not knowing another site had jumped in. One little click took me somewhere else, which I thought was my bank. Right. Answer all of these questions. Next thing I know, my bank account's being cleared out. Right. So
That's so true.
it's as easy as the internet makes us to run our business and communicate and do everything else. It's still buyer beware. And if we know what we're looking for, then we've got our own little red flags. We don't have to place all the reliance on our what so-called security, which, in all honesty, can't keep up with every scam, can they?
It's interesting. Probably the second or third highest scam reported by IC3 now is elder scam. I didn't realize now that I'm over 70 that I was such a babe magnet. And I've been
Naturally, darling.
all kinds of invites on LinkedIn and messages of how they want to connect with me and learn more, not just about my business. They want to get in private chat channels with me, and then this is all a scam for me for them to learn what I'm interested in, so they can get close to me emotionally, so that they can lay out why they need money.
I get that. I mean, I can't tell you how many proposals I've had, either through social media or email or this or that, or I love your eyes and this and that. And I look at it and it's pretty well the same template every time, right? Always lowercase I, and all of this. It's got a bit more sophisticated now, where actually it's uppercase I, and maybe they'll address something else, but it is a scam. And so I always make a point to go to the social media about. If there's nothing in there, forget it. I am not communicating with you. And you could be very valid, but if you haven't put other information in there, I also look at the streamline. And most of the time it's just pictures of them. Okay, delete. No way I'm friending this person. Again, due diligence, folks. It takes so much more time and energy when the problem arises, but it takes just mere seconds to prevent the problem.
Really does. It like you said, buyer beware.
Yeah. And it's sad that we have to be like this nowadays. And I don't care if you have Norton, this, that, and whatever you have, they cannot keep up. There are professional hackers out there being paid a great deal to keep breaking down all these other people's systems. I remember.
Not only that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just, for example, years and years and years ago, I had Norton, and there was a worm. I think it's called worm,
Yes. Okay.
And I took it to professionals, and they said, we cannot get rid of this worm. I had to get another computer. They could not save my computer at all. At that time, it wasn't just me. It was a huge, big crash thing with Norton. And it was quite terrifying because I didn't have as much information as I do on my computer now. But still, they can't keep up when you've got professional hackers, out there all the time, slipping through, especially if we're so careless.
You brought up two very interesting points there. First of all, ransomware, the best protection, secondary best protection for ransomware is to have a good backup of your computer. So in the worst case scenario, you throw that computer away, you buy another one, and you load a new computer with your backup of your data. The first level of protection here again is buyer beware. The user on the internet is still the number one target of the bad guys. It's not hacking into servers and mainframes and all this big companies. A lot of individuals and small businesses have told me, well, I don't have anything on my computer that's worth anything. Why would they bother? Well, it's a numbers game. And not only can they hack your computer and get you to give up information about your bank account, they can take over control of your computer and start attacking other computers.
Yes.
But let's just say that they use your computer to start storing child porn.
Yes.
For someone else. Well, now that's to have child porn on your computer is a felony.
Yeah.
Now, in the investigation, the FBI might look at it and they might not charge you because they could show that you really didn't put it there. But now you have to explain to your friends and family, no, I really don't do that stuff.
Yes. And of course, people prefer to think bad of you rather than good of you. It's so, you're always guilty before proven innocent nowadays. Right. So, yes. We really do have to be extremely careful with everything we do and who we friend. And, and a lot of people, and we've been sold this for so long, it's a numbers game. The more followers, the better, especially in business. Because I've literally had people say to me, well, unless you have 5,000 followers and you can guarantee me those people are going to listen. I said, I can't guarantee one person is going to listen. My job is to put it out there. Who picks it up and who chooses to listen is out of my control. Well, I don't want that, and I don't want you. Because if you're about numbers, no, because I don't care if you've got 1 million followers. That doesn't transcribe to people listening to the information. It's just purely numbers. But you've got people like LinkedIn did it for a while. I don't know if they still do, and I'm sure Facebook and a few others do it, where you can buy likes. What's the point? What is the point of that?
Yeah, it's funny because all my books right now have been self-published, and I've actually looked at some of these. There's some companies out there that will not only publish your book for you, not the real publishing, but it's kind of on the halfway between self-publishing and a former publishing company that will not only publish your book for you, but will guarantee you will become a bestseller.
Right.
And it's a numbers game.
Yes.
They have enough emails and enough contacts to make sure that your books get that level of exposure. That's great. And I think it would be great to be a best-selling author, but my books are written from my heart to people to motivate them to either avoid the evils of the internet, like I said in my first book, or in my Cybersecurity SAM series, to motivate young people to get into this field. And I'm writing a book right now for basically business in general. It's written for non-cybersecurity executives and for anyone who is tasked with protecting their company's information. And it's written in first person, written from the heart to, hey, if I was sitting there with you, this is what I would tell you. And of course, it's got a lot of the war stories from when I was at NASA and stuff. But so I want people to take and use my books, not just not be a number.
If you're writing it for number, fame, and fortune, then it's completely the wrong approach. It's exactly the way I do my shows. People say to me, well, what do you, I say, I want people to come from the heart. When they come from the heart, they're coming from the truth, right? And it's their truth that they're sharing will ignite with somebody else's truth. But it's got to be something that's very meaningful to them. Otherwise, it's not going to be meaningful to the audience. When people are just ba, 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 ba. And when people really do mean what they have to say, it's a totally different reception. And if people aren't willing to come from the heart, that is in any business. That's in anything you do. If your heart is not connected, you are not connected. And then why should people be connected to you? Because people are going to buy you and your enthusiasm and your heart first before they're going to want to buy anything from you. So, but going back to the cyber thing of like solopreneurs, I wear all the hats entirely in my company. I do
Right.
all the editing, I do all the production, everything. I do sometimes up to 8 shows a week easily. It's a lot of work, and I've got to put it all out there. And sometimes I will get things sent to me of this, and I have no idea what it is. Or, I'm on 16 audio platforms, and sometimes, well, you've got to do this and you've got to do that. And they're talking in a jargon I don't understand, cyber talk or whatever the thing it is.
Right.
And it's like you don't know what to do. And so many times people, well, why haven't you done that? Because they asked me that, and I don't know what that is. And before I give them permission, because I don't know what I'm giving them permission for, I'm not going to go there. And I think actually having knowledge to understand what it is they're asking in layman's terms, in everyday person's terms, would help us, because I suppose in a way it's their form of security that you're logging in and you're doing this and to be able to use their platform. But if you're not using a dialogue that I'm familiar with, you could be, the big Mr. V virus coming in. So there is a real disconnect, isn't there, on terminologies that we can understand as opposed, to what really is the villain and what isn't.
I love what you said there, because it hit on a couple of things. First of all, it reminded me of a thought that I had this morning. In all my years in doing security, I was always confronted with the board of directors would say, "Are we safe?" Well, what does that mean? And, they're
Yes.
looking for, on a scale of 1 to 10, how safe are we? Well, there's no single metric out there.
Right.
So the bottom line is how do you know your son or nephew is a safe driver? Are they safe just because they have a driver's license? They
Right.
passed the test. They
Yes.
met the compliance
Right.
requirement to get behind the wheel. Does that mean they're safe? Well, your best measurement for them is to ride with them. And you'll get it because you drive, you know what safe driving looks like. You can determine if they are demonstrating safe driving when you're riding with them. And hopefully they will drive the same way when you're not riding with them. So that same thing applies to information security. So learning the basics of some of the stuff that's out there is important for the sole proprietor, for a small business. And it's so funny that you mentioned that. I mentioned the cybersecurity handbooks that are written as a high school student who ends up working with the FBI. It sounds like it's a kid's book, but it's written in terms that make sense. For example, in my first book, I believe it's actually in the second book, I get into discussing what's called a firewall. It's a technical term in the computer industry. And I explain in the book that a firewall is like a receptionist in a company. When somebody wants to come to the business, they come to the receptionist. And she says, "Oh, Mr. Jones will be with you in just a moment. Have a seat." Or, "That's a large package. Please take that around to the back to the shipping area." That's what a firewall is. So that happens in my book because I'm trained to explain high-tech cyber security stuff to essentially a freshman or sophomore in college in terms that they'll understand, so they could see the benefit of getting into this and how they can actually help solve some of the problems of tomorrow.
Yeah. I do remember when I first got a computer and it was like dummies for this and that, etc. And one thing that really frustrated me is that all of the terminology was totally and utterly different to the manual I had in my hand. Well, what do you mean? You're saying this, they're saying that. Is it the same thing? Is it something totally different? And I just find like, where is the consistent knowledge that we can refer to? A firewall, well, we know that is the kind of the doorkeeper. You don't get through this door without the right key, the right information, right? We get that. And a few other things we get now because they're so commonly used. But there's many other terminologies that are used that anybody in the computer business, it's like that to them, but to us is that what are you asking? And you go to one book and it tells you this, and you go to something else and it tells you that, and really it gets extremely frustrating.
Yeah, technology jargon like acronyms
Yes.
is a drug. I remember one day while I was there at the Johnson Space Center, someone came into my office and I gave them a complete thought with only acronyms. It wasn't a sentence, but it sounded like a sentence, but it was nothing but a string of acronyms.
And what did they do?
Well, they understood what I was saying and left.
Right. But not everybody does, right? Because acronym, okay, break down. Does it mean da 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 da? And like 2 hours later, you're trying to get what the sentence was. I've hired people in the past to kind of rebuild a site to do things for me because I thought it would be easier, and it's always that I've ended up having to dismiss it or rebuild myself in my own layman way because they overcomplicate it. And the other thing is they didn't listen to what I needed. No, you've got to have it like this. And
Right.
I will go to people's sites when I'm interviewing them. And very often I will see a site that is totally incongruent with who they are as a person, no representation whatsoever there. And that is and that in itself is kind of a lack of security because you're misrepresenting yourself. So why would they bother to kind of go any further? But your site says this and does that, and I meet you, and it's just like, I don't see the connection. And if we are going to hire people, we need to hire people first. How do you vet them? Because there's all talk and this and that, but I've been hijacked twice now with people not giving me my site back unless I pay more. Right. Or they've done completely opposite to what I wanted them to do, and then they get angry with me.
Right.
And it's very, very frustrating. So, I've been designing another site myself, and I don't know what I'm doing, but it's the blind leading the blind here. But if that is in a business, you're trying to build something, a secure site so you can do e-commerce on it, or you can sell your goods from it, and then you hire someone to do it, and it either doesn't represent you, or you can't even get into that security thing now because they've set it all up and they're not going to give it back to you unless you pay more. It's a solopreneur's nightmare.
It absolutely is. It's referred to as a supply chain issue, supply chain problem. I first encountered that when I was at the Space Center. We were creating the request for proposals for the engineering and operations of the operations center to monitor the space station, because we didn't have the space station up at that time. So I had to put together requirements that they would meet so I could be assured that they were going to do it with adequate security. So how do I know it? And then how can I monitor them and know that they have good security? So that was a big issue there.
And it trickles down because, it used to be kind of a specialty to build a site and everything in it. And now everybody's doing it, right? Every Joe. Right. So, and the cowboys out there, as we call them. Where did you get the name Silver Snoopy?
Well, I didn't create it. Actually, it's the astronauts. I wish I'd brought it with me. It's a little lapel pin made of silver that shows Snoopy with the MMU, Man Maneuvering Unit, jetpack on his back and a space helmet. And it's my silver Snoopy lapel pin actually flew on the mission that launched the Hubble telescope.
Neat.
The silver Snoopy lapel pin is the only award the astronauts give. And they presented it to me for the security program I put in place there in mission operations to protect their life.
Fantastic. And is that the Hummel that's the Canadian Hummel?
No, it's the American one.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't remember the Canadian connection, but could have been. I thought maybe I remember the Canadian connection with the arm.
Maybe it's the arm I'm thinking of, right? But again, Canadian, American, Russian, this and that, and sometimes there's so many different pieces in there. And again, if there isn't the consistency between the thread of security, and you're not talking about security of people necessarily hacking, it's the security literally that then go from one next step to the next step safely and get back in, to the capsule. So we talk security all the time, but we don't really truly understand the dynamics behind it or the complexities behind it.
That's so true. It's funny, we talked about all the businesses. I'm going to misquote this, but I believe it was Gus Grissom and one of the early Mercury astronauts. It said something like, here I'm sitting on so many million megatons of energy being ready to be hurled into outer space. thinking of my safe return home, knowing it was all done by 200 independent contractors, all the lowest bidder.
Oh, God, yeah, that's scary, isn't it? Put it like that. That is very, very scary. And, then you want to make sure. I mean, you've seen obviously Hidden Figures.
Yes.
A fantastic movie. And of course, people don't realize that really computer equation, everything, it is all math, isn't it? It's all
Yes.
mathematical equations and zeros and ones and everything that kind of go together. And that before you actually, and a lot of people kind of think the computer came first. No, people built the computer, folks. Genius says that, and I always refer to the head as the computer. You have the hard drive and you have the programming. Right. So hard drive is what makes the body move and do everything else. And the programming is what we're brought up with, or even ancestral. And it very much can contradict one another. If you haven't got the people that are the geniuses, but if you don't have the geniuses talking to one another,
right,
then you can run into a conflict. It may be brilliant, that may be brilliant, but you put them two together and they don't fit. So there has to be the constant cohesive communication between you all.
Communication, integration, and here again, backup systems.
Yes.
The reason I mentioned backup systems, most people don't realize that the computer on the Eagle, the landing lunar lander, when it landed on the moon, the computer died. And the last 11 seconds, Houston, there was dead silence. So there in the Mission Control Center, 11 seconds of dead silence gives you a lot to think about. Did they sink into the moon? Did they bounce back into outer space? And if you go back and listen to it, it says, Houston, the Eagle has landed, Tranquility Base here. So, and Houston says, well, we're breathing again here.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 11 seconds in a case like that. I mean, 11 seconds in anything that is a crisis, it literally can be life and death. And again, going back to what we said at the beginning, our reliance to computers. What do we do when we back up? You were talking about backup earlier. I have 2 of these 2 gigabyte external hard drives, which I take all my shows and information off. And this is my 3rd one, and this is a 4 terabyte. Now, the other one's a terabyte. This is 4 terabyte. The other 2 are 2 terabytes each. They're both full. Ended up that one of them, the fan is broken in them, so I can't get into it. So it's like, here I am being due diligent, backing things up, and now I can't even get into it. So it's not just the programming, it's very much the devices as well, yes. Right? They've got to be there as just as reliable as the actual programming of them.
Absolutely, which is the reason why I have several copies of my backup in several places. So, and you're talking there about you held the backup in your hand. Is my question then is, when you have a backup, how are you protecting your backup? Are you leaving it? Are you having it right next to the computer that it catches fire? It burns up your backup as well. So,
yes,
these are some of the questions that I mentioned in my book there, and you mentioned the Hidden Figures. Another movie I love is Apollo 13.
Yeah. Yes.
I was fortunate enough when I was there at the Space Center that my boss was Gene Kranz, the real guy in the white vest, played by Ed Harris in the movie Apollo 13. In other words, Mr. Failure is not an option.
Right. Yes. And is that phenomenal. Houston, we have a problem?
Yes. Yeah. But working for Gene at that time, it was phenomenal because it was before we had laws, before we had standards, before we had guidelines. My mandate was very simple. No one's died on my watch. It's not going to happen now.
Right. Yes. I got that pressure. And, and very often it doesn't matter how brilliant you are, how good you are at working out, systems or problems. It's that how quick can you do it? Because as you said, 11 seconds, it could be life and death. All right. And it's like you have a problem that you don't have time to work out what the problem is. You've got to be ahead of the game, right? So this is scenarios. What happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? What do we do if that happens? And invariably, it's something that's not in that category. But because you've done the scenarios, you can jump into solutions quicker.
That's so real. Like I mentioned, the book that I'm writing right now, in it, I document my 4-step process for creating a cost-effective program for any companies, no matter how large or small, in any industry. And in that is a big part of having define contingency plans for what will happen if.
Mm. The what if. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we use what if too much in life, that stops us from growing. Yeah, but what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? You're the opposite. You have to look at what could go wrong to know how to secure it to go right.
It's one of the great examples I love there for shuttle operations, for example, is every position in the Mission Control Center has two different computers doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's talking to two mainframe computers down on the first floor doing the same thing. And one dies, the other one takes over. They're on separate networks, separate power supplies.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking, well, that's all great, but what happens if you have a shuttle mission going on and a tornado, a hurricane comes in from the Gulf? There was actually a contingency plan for that.
Yes.
What happens if the four main computers on board the shuttle have a problem with the mass memory unit and they don't know what to do? There was a contingency plan for that. A fifth computer that was loaded on board the shuttle just for that purpose. It had its own memory, its own power. It was all by itself. And if all else fails, turn this computer on and it will get you home. So you got to think about, what's going to happen and how am I going to deal with it?
Yeah, there's times for the what if. Don't let the what if talk you out of something. But if even if you are going into business, have a few what ifs. Now, what if this happens? One of the big questions that people don't ask themselves when they're going to business is, what if I'm successful? Am I actually prepared?
Yes.
Like if you are selling something online and suddenly you get a huge demand for it, is the company you're with able to cope with it? Are you able to go with it? Or is it going to, when a certain president came into power, all of a sudden everybody wants to come to Canada, and literally our Canadian immigration shut down, and you can get that overload, and people don't prepare for, well, what if we're successful? What do we need to do if suddenly our numbers go up? And again, if everything, we really need to kind of look at things, and not everybody's capable of doing that. Then not everybody's capable of being that analytical. And I'm a true colors coach, the 4 key personality perspectives, and I'm nowhere near the analytical person, though I do love to ask the questions. I'm not good at working them out, but I know how to ask the questions. You need to have somebody on your team or somebody you can turn to. Okay, what if I have this problem? Could you give me some feedback on what I need to look for, right? Don't wait for the problem to happen.
The whole focus of what I talk about in information security is not eliminating security problems, not saying that it's fixed. It's never fixed.
No.
Hackers keep hacking, technology keeps changing, businesses still collect more data and find new ways to deal with the data. So it's always changing. My focus is on getting you to look at what data you have, what would be the impact if that data was compromised, or if it was not available, or if it was false, if it was in error, if it was corrupted. And then the impact there of that happening, what is the likelihood of that happening, and how big will the impact be? And when it does happen, the impact is not just your loss of data, but it's your loss of reputation, potential lawsuits.
Yes.
So my focus is all on risk management. Look at this, how important is this? And that way you apply the right controls to the right data. I heard a great example the other day about a company being hacked, and the data that was exposed was the members of the local basketball team. Well, who cares? That's not worth protecting. But if the financials had been hacked, that would have been something different.
Now, talking about that, I have a book here with a book cover with a basketball hoop and ball. Time Out. What is that about?
Oh, that's the very first book I wrote of the cybersecurity Sam series. I love it. Sam and his buddy are sitting there at a basketball game, and his buddy looks at his watch and goes, in basketball, there's a 20-second shot clock. You have 20 seconds that you shoot the ball within 20 seconds. And I noticed that when we get the ball, we get 22 seconds. When the other team gets the ball, they only get 18 seconds. The shot clock still says 20 seconds, but they're only getting 18 and we're getting 22. So that's how that story starts off with Sam goes, well, I don't understand this. I know how computers work. That's not right.
Right.
So Sam goes to his computer science teacher and says, I don't understand this. And his teacher says, I'm too busy with this.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an ID, go check it out. And that's how Sam gets involved. And at one point in the story, the English teacher is the main suspect.
Ah.
So
I love whodunits. You know, I was brought up with the famous five, and I'm British. I love a good whodunit type drama mystery, and I love things that kind of open up. So this is kind of youth genre that you're writing, is it?
yes, it's in fact, it's a friend of mine referred to it as the Nancy Drew of the cybersecurity world.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My brother is a youth writer. He's all over the board. He's written many, many books, but he loves writing the youth genre for the fact that is that you really can kind of go into worlds that when you kind of get purely with the adult things, somehow you can't go anymore. You know, and that is our own limitations that we put on ourselves. But with the youth, I mean, he wrote one book, you might be fascinated with this, The Repercussions of Thomas D. And it's a young boy talking to his girlfriend on the phone, and suddenly he goes through a wormhole and he ends up in 1943 during a bombing. And because he's got this device, he's arrested, and somebody's in the cell with him, and he spills the beans, everything. I'm from the future, the computers and everything. And it turns out to be somebody who's working for Hitler, but as a spy working in England, and it changes history completely.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
So, and the repercussions of that and how the domino effects, and you know, for youth reading it who go, oh, you're telling me in the future I can't be without my phone? I mean, but that's another thing. We grew up with, you know, robots are going to take over the world, and we're literally, you know, imagining, you know, and I'd say we have the droids today, you know, the drones. We have the Walking Dead, people who abstain from life altogether, but we've already been taken over.
Yes.
You know, the phone with the computer and everything else has now enslaved us. And
Yes.
so, you know, we don't need the big, huge metal devices, you know, of the robots. The more and more the internet entices us in like breadcrumbs, you know, and brings us in, the more careless we get, but the more mesmerized we get, and the more we lose ourselves. And what security do we have on that of not being, you know, so sucked in?
Yeah, I have a grandson who is working for a company there in Ireland, and he got his degree in artificial intelligence. And we've had some interesting conversations about artificial intelligence. That's machines making ethical decisions on nanoseconds of time. Like if all of a sudden a child runs out in front of the street, in front of the car, and the car can't stop in time, does it run over the child? Does it swerve to the right to run over the grandmother?
Right.
So these are interesting things that have to be dealt with. But machines are out there. Self-driving cars are out there.
Yes, flying cars, you know, all of these, the Jetsons, if you remember from the 60s, you know, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to have a bag that we can put everything in.
Oh.
Mary Poppins type bag, or put the car in and everything else in. But
the Jetsons? Where do you think Rosie I'm Home came from?
Right. Okay. Oh, right. Exactly. We love convenience. You know, we love, you know, my son-in-law has Googled his house. Google switched the light on. Google this. Google that. And it's all very, very convenient. But you know, at what point do you stop? Because it's like, oh, I'm going to Google this room and Google that room and do this and do that. And I did see, I can't remember what movie it was, you know, being completely trapped in, you know, by the psychopathic, you know, AI. And it's, can we get there? Can we get there where literally where the AI, I mean, iRobot, for instance, right? Can we get there where the robot in its deduction thinks that we're harming itself and decides to take over? Is this all science fiction, or do you think it really could happen?
That's one of my major concerns. I'm just that's one of the reasons why I have my business. It's not just security, it's governance. Security has got some good principles and standards that people follow them to protect information that it collects. The problem is we're collecting more and more information, and information inside our domain is being created from that information that may not have an owner and may not be appropriate. Uh, so the inference there could be very real. I remember when I was at the Space Center, I used to judge the local science projects down in the Houston Regional Science Projects. And there was a kid who had a computer demonstrating what was early stages of AI at the time, inductive reasoning. And I fed him information about Socrates. And then I asked him if Socrates was alive. And the computer came back and said, yes, 100%. And it's because of the information I had fed him. The system deducted that Socrates is a real live person today.
See, this thing, when we look at everything feeding back to us, it's somebody that's programmed something into it. So if they've programmed something wrong into it, that's what's going to come back. I have a friend who devised a program, and it is kind of a third degree of separation of finding people that can help you communicate, you know, the answers that you need. And Microsoft has now taken it over and developing its form of AI. And that actually came from an electric motor that he was building, and then finding out that it was kind of quantum in its energy. And then I introduced him to true colors and to numerology. And then from that, kind of with the quantumness and the numerology and the true colors and the way his brain works, you know, came out this fractal, you know, and fractals, you know, all this information. And then he devised this program, and he was doing something with Microsoft at the time of a program that he was using. And apparently he caused one of their systems to go down with what he was doing. So they were intrigued, and now it's led to them taking over the program. We don't know how much of that is going on out there. You know, we have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. And we also don't know what people are doing with it. We look at the atomic bomb. Should we ever have built that? No. Why do we build it? Because we could, and because somebody wanted that power. Where do we put a stop or put the brakes on in all of our use of cyber anything? Like we were talking earlier about cyber currency, which is going to be the way in the future. We will not have money. We will have all cyber money. How do we protect ourselves? Is there a point that we need to put brakes on somewhere?
There is a double-edged sword. You mentioned earlier worm. A worm is like a virus. It crawls in from one computer to the next computer. It doesn't require another transport system like a virus requires someone to sneeze on you, for example.
Right.
A worm crawls by itself. Now, the worm, the internet worm of the late 80s brought computers down across the world.
Yes.
And this was bad. And worms are typically bad. But a worm could be good. If you think about having a worm that could go out and crawl through all computers and fix them all.
Yes. Change the programming of the worm, right?
Yeah. So, you know, it could be a very good tool, but it has been hijacked to be a very bad tool.
Right. I mean, it's, you know, people give social media a bad rap, and really it's all the algorithm. We are all algorithms. What you feed is what's going to grow. So if you don't like that negative side of social media, don't engage.
Right.
Right. What you do like, they will keep feeding you. People you do like, they will keep feeding you. And you don't need to be caught up in that other side. And just because we can doesn't mean we should. At some point, we have to be discerning and take onus of our own actions, thoughts, and understanding of why do we think we need this, or why do we think we need that.
I totally agree. In fact, as you were talking, I was reminded of several years ago, I got an email that said that because my computer was attacking the internet, that I was being put on a blacklist, and that that to do such to get off the blacklist, click this link. And my hand was actually in the air.
And you're like,
Wait a minute. So, how dare them? They don't know who they're dealing
you're
with.
right, exactly.
So it's so real out there.
But that's the thing, you talked about it earlier. And when we talked about the reading, before you react and panic, read. What are the logistics of this? Like with the Norton thing, I don't have Norton. I haven't had it since the worm back in the late 80s, early 90s, right? I mean, never Norton again. I know maybe Norton's very good, but no, I have something else now. And I checked my bank account. No money had gone through. So obviously this is not real. The other thing, this is something to pay attention, folks. There is no site. There is no formality about them. It's all kind of written up like a little invoice, right? We have no heading, no this, no that, nothing professional looking about them. And I get sent things all the time about, I will build your site, I'll do your CEO, I'll do all of this. If there's nothing professional looking about you, no, I'm not going down that way. I don't know who you are. I know where you are. You're coming from India, you're coming from here, you're coming from there. But there is nothing professional looking about you, and you want me to hand things over to you and pay you and to do this and to do that? No. Think before we act, folks.
That's exactly the words, examples in my book about your personal information is at risk. And as far as antivirus goes, people have asked me which is the best antivirus. And my response is I'd rather drive a Ford or a Chevy than walk. So the important thing is to have antivirus, but know that just because you have antivirus doesn't mean you're protected. It's one level of protection. Still, the most important protection is you, the user.
Yes.
In fact, the book I'm writing right now, I actually talk about the human being hacked, and that's what's happening most of the time. Yeah. They're gathering likes on you, and they find out you like tacos, and next thing you know, you're getting a bunch of emails about tacos, trying you to do something tacos.
But we get that if you click on a something that's being sold on social media, I'm going to have a look at this. This looks good. The next thing you know, you are being inundated daily, several times a day with their shopping list. And then, I have bought, and either they've never put the right address on it or I've never got it. And you try and get hold of the company. Oh, I'm so sorry, this, that, etc. Send it out again. And you're never going to see it. So it again, it's buyer beware, and support your local stores.
The buyer beware is exactly where I wanted to go next, because you mentioned before about using search engines and stuff like this, all this software. Most of these softwares that you use, games, whatever, have a user responsibility, has a user agreement.
Right.
And many of them, if you read them, which most of us don't because we assume everybody else is reading them.
Right.
Many of them will actually come right out and explain to you they're making no effort to protect your information, that their service is for you to use, and if you like it, use it. If you don't use it, you're using their service at your risk.
Right.
So
exactly.
You have to take the time to read the agreements and determine, is this service so great that I'm going to use it? And if so, if I'm at risk, what data am I going to put there? How am I going to use it, or what limits am I going to put on that use?
And, there's still the old-fashioned thing of interacting with people. You can use your social medias. Which one, like LinkedIn for business, is very good. If you're wanting the consumer, you have got Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all of those things. Don't use them all, because you're now going to be a slave to every platform. Choose 2 or 3 platforms that you really like. Take the time to build up a network. Take a time to interact, to form a conversation, to say, let's have a chat. And use it as a form of a network. It's not about just posting buy now, buy low, sell high, all of that type of thing. It is, people are saturated with that. When Flash came out, oh God, that was just so annoying. I would immediately delete and go out of a site that had Flash, because I don't want to be flashed in front of me all the time. It's the same now when you go to a site and immediately sign up, buy this, buy that. I'm here to look at your site to see what's interesting about it. Don't try selling me something before I've even got in. So old-fashioned networking, old-fashioned building, make the time to do it. And if you hire people to do certain things and postings for you, be careful. There was one case of a woman who was having this conversation with someone. And one day she got to meet them. She went to have a, oh, finally we meet, and talking to you. And the woman goes, who are you? She had an assistant talking to her all this time, right? Your credibility has just gone down the toilet, right? So it's part of your time management to interact and build your clientele. You can't buy them.
You have to have that trust relationship with
Yes.
the other side. And you have to not only know and trust the person, but you have to have some assurance that it really is that person. I got a message from an uncle that I'd never gotten a message from before. And he was telling me to click this link, and I'm going, why is he all of a sudden getting in touch with me to click this link? So instead of dealing with this, I called him up on the phone, and it just so happens his account had been hacked.
Right. We had a scary thing happen because I lived with an 88-year-old the other day, and somebody phoned, and they phoned her number, and they said, I know your PIN number for her bank card. And I immediately called back, and that number was not in service. We went to the bank and we changed her card and her PIN number. But it's how did they get her phone number and how did they get her PIN number? I would understand if they've, but how did they get it? She's not online at all. How did they get it?
Well, there you're making the assumption that they did get it. The only thing you know they got was a phone number.
But they knew the PIN number. They recited it back to her.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. There's a lot of different ways. Wow. With the hackers are good.
Yes.
So how they got her number, I'm not sure. There's a lot of different ways. She could have been at a gas pump. I know that my card was compromised at a gas pump once. So there's multiple different ways. I also got a call a couple months ago from a major online retailer that said, we have charged your account for this product. If you to press 1 to confirm, to collect, so to our customer care, press 2 to stop this, or press 3 to be removed or whatever. And I'm sure if I press 1, 2, or 3, it was going to still go to the same person, and the conversation would have been, okay, why are you calling, and what account number are you talking about? And so they want you to, the credit card number was, well, we see that credit card number, but we can you validate the code on the back for me?
Yes.
And in other words, they talk you through you telling them everything they need to do to go shopping with your credit card number.
Right.
And it's all a scam. The only thing that they had for me was my phone number. In some cases, yeah, they have my name and number. If you want to get your name and number out there, if you're over 65, sign up for Medicare online. Not the official, but just go out and respond to one of these or insurance scams. You know, one of these things online says, you want to know if you get better insurance or better car insurance or whatever. Just fill one of those forms out and give your phone number, and before you know it, you'll be answering your phone. You have a lot of friends, and they'll all be asking information about you. What are they doing with this information? You have no assurance of what they're going to do with that information.
No, and as far as your devices like your phone or your computer and everything else, you can put in logins, right? And I have particular logins and codes and extra logins for a number of things. And that can only protect you so far, but it's still the due diligence. Yes. You know, whether you are running a business or not. And if you're running a business, I really think it's a good idea, if you're going to be selling anything online, who is the person that you're doing the money with? Who is the e-commerce company? Do some research on them. Be prepared for if you're going to suddenly be very successful, can they deliver and all of that? But what is the security? What responsibility will they take? Right. Because if they're not going to take any responsibility, why would you go with them? And if somebody's just buying off your site, that's different. You don't know who they are or anything else. But if you're selling courses, if you're selling this and that, slow down, folks. take the time to read the details. And if it doesn't look right, it generally isn't right. But don't go, I'm in a hurry, click. Right. And no, if you are in a hurry, leave it, come back to it when you've got more time and really assess it. And if it looks like anything that you don't like, especially email, like everything for me is report phishing. I don't know what they're going to do with this phishing. They probably do that bugger all. But it is, it is at least letting them know this is a scam, and I'm just certainly not interested in it. You take some sort of control.
Yeah, your report phishing is good. Oftentimes, some of these scams will have a message at the bottom, click this link to unsubscribe from our mailing list. Well, that list sometimes is the same link that you would go to if they were going to scam you more.
Yeah.
So they're just using that to collect more information about you.
Right, right. So unless it's an official thing, which you have subscribed to and you've subscribed to it, then you can have, because everything is subscribed nowadays, right? Yes. Everything. So again, it is, did you subscribe to it in the first place? How can you unsubscribe if you didn't subscribe to it in the first place, right? So again, take the time to be aware. I imagine that when you look at from where you started out in security and, being part of the whole Apollo, being part of NASA, I think you were there at really exciting times. And now kind of really where we really could explore even further. We've got the technology to do it. Politically things have got in the way and we're just not seeing that same excitement. But that era, was really, really exciting. We were really in the exploratory mode. And it was like, well, let's just do this. And kind of reminds me of how Sesame Street started. Somebody, an educator saying, well, instead of beer commercials for latchkey kids, let's give them some education. And then, the Muppets and the this and that, and everybody coming together and putting something on the table and working it out as they went. And a kind of a lot of what the whole NASA space thing at that time was a bit like that, wasn't it?
Yeah. Like I said, I had no laws, no rules. It was interesting times, but I was very fortunate working for Gene Kranz. The most important thing in any business is the strong support of the senior executive.
Yes.
And that's small business, anything. If the CEO of the company doesn't care, then they can be assured no one else in the company will be. You can't abdicate your responsibility. You can't say, oh, well, Fred over here is my chief security officer. He's going to worry about security and I'm going to just not pay any attention. You have to be an advocate from the very top.
You've got to be the conductor.
Yes.
You've got a whole load of people there with very talented instruments. They really know how to play them. But unless you give them the piece of music and you conduct it, you're going to have a whole load of going on. So, you need that person that really knows that person's off key, or that person needs to come in now. That person needs to quieten down. That person needs to come up. And unless they are talented that way, then it's just a whole hodgepodge of talent that's really probably going to combust rather than excel.
Yeah. A good example, when I was at the Space Center, we were replacing a mainframe computer, a big computer with a bunch of smaller network computers. And I got to the design review and they're getting ready to throw holy water on this design saying it's good. And I said, well, hey, wait a minute. What about the audit of the instructions that go back and forth across this network? And they said, we don't have money for audit. And I said, no, that's the wrong answer. We need to have some level of audit. And they said, well, says who? I said, me, but if you don't believe me, go ask Gene. Their reply was, what do you mean by audit? They knew that if they went to Gene and questioned some security feature about this system that was so instrumental to the success of future missions, that they would be handed their hat.
Right.
So it by his strong support, it allowed me to have the necessary dialogue with the system developers so that we put the right level of audit into the system.
And because one thing you can't have in any of these type of things, a business or anything, especially when it comes to the safety of the nation or the safety of other people's lives, you can't have egos in the way.
No.
And you also can't have the shortcut accountants, the bottom liners. because very, very often things will come up that are going to cost more initially. But if you don't do it, it's going to cost you so much more down the line. If you've got those shortcut accountants, no, you can leave that out right now. We don't need it. But where are they when you've got the big bill down the road because you avoided that?
That's true. And it reminded me about hiring a specialist to go in and build a program for you in the cloud. How do you know they have good security? How do you know that what they're building for you is not only good, but also that they haven't been hacked?
True.
I've actually seen where a company had a very good programming company coming in directly into the cloud to do some development, but that account was hacked and it caused our application to be hacked.
Yeah. It's the domino effect, isn't it? The thing is when you're opening up the door to one thing, you're not just opening up to one thing. All of a sudden, it can get in there and infiltrate everything else. It's like we get this, especially on social media. I've been hacked. Don't answer this person, right?
Yeah.
Because this person has gone in as a friend and then tried to infiltrate all the other friends and literally, hacked you and done a great deal of damage. It's going to happen to us because it's sometimes out of our hands and how we can protect ourselves. So if you're on Facebook and all of those other things, we have to assume that they've got a certain amount of protection, and we can be mindful of who we friend or who we click or interact with. That is up to us. But sometimes certain things are out of our hands, and and hacking will happen. And I would say to people, don't put all of your photographs up on Facebook and not have them backed up elsewhere, because it happened to a friend of mine recently. Her entire account was hacked. She lost 7 years of information up there, shows, this, that, etc., everything. And she hasn't been able to get it back, and she had to start all over again, right? So back up, and then back up the backup, right?
Yes. And then secure that backup.
Yes. Yes.
Don't just back it up on a thumb drive and leave it in your car.
True. This is something I didn't know, which I don't know if it's true or not, but if you have an external hard drive, it can't be left in the cold, like even inside if you have a cold room, because it can shut the fan down.
It depends on the device.
Yeah, I thought it was with
Yeah,
a very...
it depends. So, I would use an external hard drive, and then I would typically remove it when I'm not there, because there is a potential, if you leave it connected and you have ransomware on your computer, that externally connected hard drive now is encrypted as well as your regular computer.
Right.
So that backup you had on that external drive is encrypted as well.
Yeah, I've got the kind of the Microsoft backup thing, and I have the other thing I have is a cleaner. And at least once a week, maybe twice a week, depending on the time frame, I go in and I clean the computer, the caches, the this, the that, and everything. Not to clean everything out, but also to stop slowing it down. But that if there is anything in there, kind of try and nip it in the bud. But it's part of any business. It's a part of any use that you're going to do online. Due diligence. This has made our life so much easier. But as with everything, if you're not being careful, it can backfire on you. It's like a car. We hop into a car and off we go. And we know we've got to gas it up and occasionally, throw oil in it or have a service, but then we take the car for complacency and we become very complacent with it. We've got like that with the internet, and we really need to be more mindful, don't we?
Yes, you need to understand that your information is an asset, whether you're an individual or a business. And you need to determine what value that information is to you. It's like you protect your diamonds more than you protect your spare pennies.
Yes.
You have to determine what information is of value to and provide the appropriate protection for it. That's one of the first steps of my 4-step process for creating a good program for any business.
And is that something that you offer people?
Yes, actually, my company is called Johnny Security Seed. The web is johnnysecurityseed.com. and I provide advisory services to small businesses besides the books that I'm writing. Also, on that webpage, you'll find out that I give free presentations to schools as part of my cybersecurity SAM process of motivating young people. And in fact, quite often at the end of that presentations to the schools, the students would say, well, how do I get into this business? Well, I would tell them about the Cybersecurity SAM series. But since then, I've also written a free ebook that you can download from my webpage. It's Cybersecurity SAM book 3.4 called Spring Break. In this book, Sam again solves the problem of the day, but he has a conversation with an FBI agent about, well, this is cool. How did you get into cybersecurity? So it's free guidance there for anybody that's interested in getting into this field. So like I said, it's johnnysecurityseed.com.
You're very, very smart to have written these in books, because if you just came in and talked cybersecurity, for some people it would be too dry or too this or too that, but putting it in the form of a book where it becomes kind of the investigation, the thriller, the anticipation, the storyline, they insert themselves in the book as one of the characters, and then it becomes so much more exciting, right? And that is a really great way of actually, introducing this world to the kids, because obviously in the future and ongoing for as long as we ever have computers and internet, we need to have people that are in the security side of it, and probably even more so in the future as things get more sophisticated.
The cybersecurity profession is in great need of qualified people. So many people are, in fact, I'm actually working with a major university in Texas to create a information security management certificate program. But that's taking people that are already interested in information security. The cybersecurity SAM, I'm trying to get upstream to get these people who, the kids that are playing with computers, and get them to think, well, wow, I could get into this. And it's just exciting to me to give back in that form. And this whole thing, this whole giving back started from a seed from when I was at the Space Center. I was teaching college at night. And one day on a trip from Houston to Austin, I stopped into this Wendy's, and the lady behind the counter said to me, I know you. And I'm going, what? She said, yeah, you're my professor, and you're the one that taught me about computers. And today is the last day of me being in this job. Tomorrow I'm taking a job using what you taught me.
That's nice. It's very gratifying, that, isn't it?
Like that.
Yeah.
So that's the whole mission behind Johnny Security Seed is it's not making huge amounts of money. It's all focused on how can I motivate people to get into this field, or just don't click that bad link.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, kids today, they're so much faster and savvier on the internet. I mean, I was in my 40s when I got my first computer, I think 46 or something like that. And I'm self-taught. So, there's still a lot of things I don't understand. But I look at how much I do today. And if you told me back then, I never would have believed you. But kids are just, you see this wonderful picture on Facebook with like a 6-year-old. Yes, grandma. No, you've got to switch it on first. And this is, they're so quick and savvy. But they're writing code for games. They're doing this and they're doing that. But if they don't understand the security side of things, then maybe potentially they could become the hacker if they understand the importance of the security, and how, if they are going to invent a game, which we see so many young kids doing, where's the security in that game that it can't be hacked, that it can't get plugged in, and it can't do this and that. Understand the domino effect, which is really important for them to understand. So introducing it as a form of a book, which is an adventure, having them, when they look at coding, I mean, some people read coding like other people just read the newspaper, it's which to me, no, over my head altogether. And they can do this at great speeds, and it's absolutely fantastic, because we don't have anything without them, right? But again, security. We, again, protect our car. We lock our doors at night. We look both ways before we cross the road. We don't talk to strangers per se. There's all these things that we have instilled in us to be secure. So we need to take that security a step further. And the younger that generation is and coming out, they are so innovative.
Yes.
They have minds that are just so open to possibilities of what if we did this, or what if that, or what if that. And if we just let them loose to discover, they will come up with things that we can't, because we've still got too many old programming and restrictions in the way.
It's so funny. You just hit on a couple of things that I usually emphasize when I'm talking to the students about don't take candy from strangers, stranger danger. Same thing applies on the internet, emails and stuff. And I explained to them that my 7th grade teacher taught me how to read the newspaper. No, I learned how to read before the 7th grade, but she taught me how to read, to understand what the person writing is trying to convince me of what is right. What are they trying to get me to do? What are they trying, so, and that kind of reading is what you need to use when you're reading your emails.
And anything.
Yes.
As I said, it's one of my pet peeves, because I get a great deal of people who do not read the instructions on what I'm doing with the shows, or the material that I want, and or I've gone to your site and I don't know where to click. It says click on banners for show genres, or click here for new shows. It's in big letters, and I got donation buttons and other buttons and bright colored, and yet we have become, I don't know. Are we oversaturated? Have we become only interested in what flash attracts our attention in the moment? Are we abstaining and become lazy because we want everything fast, convenient, and now? Slow down, please. The information that you're going to listen to, and a case in point with my shows, people only have 10-minute attention span. I said, they're not my audience. My audience are the people that are hungry for the information, that want to know more and more of it, peel back the layers, and come away with something that they can apply, right? If you haven't got the time to listen and you don't take the time to read, how are you going to know what you need to apply to your life to succeed?
Right. That's the issue I see oftentimes with a lot of small businesses. They look at cybersecurity and go, oh, I don't have the background. I don't have the resources in time, money, hire somebody to deal with this. I just can't be bothered. I'm too busy running my business. I'm making things happen. I don't have time to worry about protecting my information assets. So running full blast and full torpedoes, full speed ahead, it's crazy.
Yeah. And, if you are even having people signing up, you're coaching, you've got people they're signing up to your site. Is your site protected? Because you owe that protection to them as well.
Yes.
So have you got all the necessary backup? Are you with I'm with WordPress. So they do a certain amount themselves, and I've got this and I've got that. And, it again, it still comes down to due diligence, and slow down to pay attention to what is going on. Don't rush by. And we've become rusher-bys, and and that's just for life in general, right? Slow down and smell the roses. It's, they're pretty as you drive by. Stop and smell them. Pay attention, please, folks. I love the fact that you've done these books where you've done it, this is what's happening, adult books, and this is how you do this, but then the storytelling, because I love reading youth books. They may be written for youth, but they bring out the youth inside of you. They trigger things inside of us that we forget as adults, or that we've forgotten to look at it that way, and having a different perspective allows us to see something differently now. Because we do get a little jaded as we get older, or a little selective, and a little reminder now and again is good. So it's good to buy it for your grandson or your granddaughter and then say, I've read it too. Let's have a conversation.
Oh, absolutely. What a great idea.
And, you're empowering the kid then to say, all right, Grandma, you're online all the time. What cybersecurity have you got? And you're empowering them to be part of your solution, but, opening up that conversation, because we always expect them to come into our world. How about we find a bridge to go into their world?
Just imagine having a conversation with your grandchildren about, I got this email and had a link in it, and I put my cursor on the link and saw that they wanted me to do something with a bank in Australia.
Yeah.
How crazy do they think I am? And your grandkids are going, how did you know the bank was in Australia? Because
Yes.
because I looked at it, because
Yeah.
I carefully read what was there, and before clicking the link, I was able to see the link.
Yes. We paid attention, we slowed down, we read what was in there, and we used our deduction. Does this look real? And it's sad that we have to be skeptic. It's sad that we have to take these precautions, but unfortunately, it is necessary. And if we don't want to pay, for the repercussions of it, then we really need to take our time. And if you are a solopreneur or you run a small business, look to who, if you have a small business, hiring someone that actually is really, really good at being able to read those signs. Maybe you're hiring someone to do your social media or your promoting or your marketing for you. At the same time, are they good at looking at the false narratives as well?
Right.
Right. So and even maybe paying for someone to do a cyber course or something like that. In the end, you're going to be so grateful that that person has that skill, because prevention is better than cure, folks.
Absolutely. You hit on something else that just reminded me. There's something out there called deep fake. This is something you can Google, deep fake, and it's computer generated video of what appears to be real. When I was shown it by an FBI agent, I was shown a video that appeared to be Nixon eulogizing the death of the two astronauts that crash landed on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And just looking at it, you would have sworn it was Nixon. You would have sworn that Buzz and Neil had actually died when they landed on the moon.
Yes.
But it was all computer generated. So look at deep fake. It's a real scam out there.
What was the movie on that? Capricorn 1, was it?
Well, Capricorn 1 was about the moon landing being
Right. Yeah.
funny. But deep fake was actually used in Ukraine, where they created a deep fake video of President Zelensky telling the soldiers to put down their arms, we're giving up. But luckily, it was such a poor quality, the
Right.
soldiers didn't see it, didn't believe it, and they just kept fighting. But this is a kind of, you can't, seeing is not believing anymore.
No, it isn't. The picture was worth 1,000 words. Not anymore, because you can't buy that picture as being real. And, like on TV the other day, they actually had a Russian government saying, getting Trump back in again, like they got him in the first time, and the saturation of emails and the social medias and then this and that of getting, that false narrative off. And it's called propaganda, folks. And the fear sells. Sensationalism sells. I used to accuse Fox News of taking a pimple and making it a volcanic eruption. Well, that whole industry of getting you scared and riled up and reactive is that. It's taking something that's minute, making it bigger, because when they've got you scared, they've got you under control, and now you're going to go and do stupid things.
That's the first ingredient of trying to hack you via email, is get your emotions going first, and get you to react in a timely in a quick manner before you have a chance to think.
Yes. And it's playing you stupid. And let's just show them we're smarter than that, folks. We're smarter. And that means pay attention. If it doesn't look right, it isn't right. Right. And you know what? If you're dealing with somebody really valid and you've deleted that email, and they, either phone you or send you another email, didn't you get my email? And it looks more, realistic. But on your social medias, on your email, on anything where they contact you. And as I said, with my little nearly 89-year-old, they phoned her to say, contact the police, we know your PIN number, gave her the PIN number and put the phone down. And then that phone wasn't in service anymore because I called it right back. Why they did that, I don't know. What was it to gain? It doesn't make any sense. But sometimes it's just because they know they can scare the bejeebies out of people. They get a kick out of it.
Well, it's a business. I remember my dad telling me a lot of people have more money than sense. What is it? Barnum Bailey said, a fool is born every second.
So, oh, God, yeah.
So
There
you
isn't
have
a lot of
to.
common sense around nowadays. We see people reacting to things and go, really? Really? You're getting all uptight about that? And
Common sense is
and
not as common.
and
Yeah.
also this need to one up or attack or take advantage of other people. There is no other animal or species on this planet that does that. It's a human condition, and it's not a nice condition.
No.
And this is what we do need to press delete on. So what we need to look at is be accountable for our own behaviors. And it's extremely easy. We see this on cyberbullying. It's extremely easy behind a computer or a phone to do all of these things out without taking any of the consequences or responsibility for what happens. And again, buyer beware. We can bring down reputations just like that through social media, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we've got to take everything with a pinch of salt until proven. We look at people, they're guilty before proven innocent. We've got to change that dynamics altogether.
Totally agree.
So the site again is, let me have a look at it here. It is johnnysecurityseed.com. You also have richowen.com, right?
No.
Oh,
No.
no.
Rich Owen is just the name that you do a search at Amazon to get my
okay.
books.
All right.
Or if you go to Johnny Security Seed, you'll get the list of books.
And you can buy them. You have a different one that you can buy them from there.
You can buy them any place that books are sold online. I recommend going straight to my publisher, bookbaby.com. And there, if you put in a special code JSS1 as a coupon, you can get my books at 10% off, ebooks or print books, 10% off if you use code JSS1 at bookbaby.com.
I'm going to put that down on the posting. And of course, if you want the convenience, you've also got Amazon as well. So you can go to either one of them. And you're also on LinkedIn as well under your name?
Oh, yes.
And, I'm always, talking about book clubs. And I encourage kids even to have book clubs and then talk about it, but also podcast clubs, so, listening to a podcast and having a conversation. And I think this is one where definitely is a good one to pass around, because even if we just get people questioning, this has been happening to me and I didn't take much, mind of it. Now I need to be more mindful, or, talking about it, because nobody wants to admit they were the idiot that pressed the button, right? But we've all done it.
Sure.
So own it. These were the repercussions. Believe me, folks, you don't want to go there. And, prevention is better than cure. So if we can help each other prevent it by sharing the horror stories, we become more aware and more due diligent. And really, ultimately, that's what we've got to be, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming and sharing today all this wonderful information, as scary as it can be. But it doesn't have to be. We have this wonderful device, internet. It can open up our worlds. It could be absolutely extraordinary. But like with anything, driving a car, handling a hammer, or anything else, there's a responsibility to it. And we need to know what those responsibilities are. And when we do, in that consciousness, we can prevent, or at least know what to do when something happens, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, Sharon, Sarah, thank you so much for allowing me. This is obviously my retirement gig. It's my passion. When I retired, I decided what I want to do with life, and I'm just trying to give back and help people avoid the evils of the internet.
Yeah, and which is perfect, because we've done it through the books, which invites that generation to protect us in the future, and you're doing it as a service now to show us how we can protect ourselves. Because as you said, there are so many people who have retired that started little businesses, and security, oh, you mean I have to hire a security guard to watch my my thing? No, we're not talking about that kind of security, and for most people it's just over their heads, and they're more the simple things they know, the simple things that they need to know, the easier it is to protect themselves. So thank you for taking up another career.
All righty. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Until next time, folks, remember, don't be scared. Just be forearmed, when you know what it is to look out for, when you know what it is you need to do, just taking that time just to do something, check something. Does it feel right? Should I click? If it doesn't feel right, trust your instincts, don't click. And look at what you do need to do in order, when you're signing up for anything, is this real or not? Takes just a few moments to do so, but it can save you a great deal of pain. Until next time, bye for now. We hope you enjoyed the show. We look forward to bringing you more shows. Please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows and you will see the incredible lineup of genres and shows that we have for you. We are here to make a difference in your life. Thank you for listening.